Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, Office 365 Backup and Recovery, All You Need to Know. I am your host, Paul Thrott, and with me are two industry experts, Phoummala Schmitt and Gina Rosenthal. If you're interested in tweeting about this webinar, we ask that you do so, and please use that hashtag you see right there in the middle of the screen, hashtag Where's My Email. Okay, as noted, I am Paul Thrott, your host for today's festivities. I'm the major domo over at Thrott.com, the news editor for Petri.com. I record two podcasts every week, Windows Weekly with Leo Laporte and Mary Jo Foley, and also What the Tech with Andrew Zarian. But enough about me. Let's move on to today's speakers. First up, we have Phoummala Schmitt. She's an IT professional with a broad range of experience focusing on Microsoft software, VMware, and also enterprise storage. Extensive experience working in IT consulting and operations at a global scale. She heads up an enterprise and backup environment that supports employees in more than 30 countries. She holds several certifications, including MCSA and MCTS, in addition to being named V-Expert, 2014 and 2015. She's also a co-host of the Current Status podcast. Also with us today is Gina Rosenthal. She is the Principal Product Marketing Manager for Spanning Backup for Office 365. She's supported enterprise tech for the past 15 years as a product marketer, a technical training developer, sysadmin, blogger, community manager at companies including Dell and EMC. In her current role, Gina is passionately evangelizing the need for SaaS data protection within backup and recovery markets. She works closely with the Office 365 community to build out the product strategy to meet future demands. She is from Florida, but she currently lives in Austin. Okay, just as a sort of a prelude to today's talk, I wanted to talk briefly about Office 365 and why I feel that this product is so important and also transformative. When you think about Microsoft's major strategy shift to mobile first, cloud first, Office 365 emerges as what I see as its biggest success story. When you think about the history of Office, which has long been a traditionally delivered software product on PC clients and also on-premises servers in more recent years, Microsoft's ability to transform those products into cloud services, in the case of the servers, or nimble client applications and mobile apps on the client side, ones that are serviced and updated like cloud services, is actually pretty astonishing. And I think it serves as kind of a blueprint for how this kind of transformation can happen in businesses everywhere. I often describe Office 365 as a win-win-win, as it says here. And that's because it benefits everyone. Microsoft wins because it's found a way to bring its successful business model from the predictable quality volume licensing out to all of its customers. Microsoft's customers win because Office 365 is essentially a no-brainer, delivers unbelievable value with affordable pricing. And for Microsoft partners, it's also a win because the software giant has really embraced its roots here, and it's made Office 365 extensible both from a programmatic standpoint, but also from sort of a sales and supports perspective as well. You can see some of the key strengths I listed here, but the one I'd like to highlight really is the hybrid install option. I think this is the key differentiator for Microsoft, not just with Office 365, but across all of its products. And it's one that competitors can't copy. And I think that the hybrid model emerges as the new normal for businesses moving forward. And what I mean by that is I don't see most businesses focusing entirely on the cloud or staying entirely on-prem. Instead, I think that the hybrid is the way to go, where workloads will live where it makes the most sense for them to do so based on business needs. All right, enough of my babbling. So first up, we will have a poll question, what is the poll question? How do we see the poll question? I thought it was going to be there. Well, the first poll question is, how do we display this? I'm sorry.
See, can we click question?
I thought we were
How
going
many
to say, I'm
IT professionals does it take to display a poll?
Yeah, exactly. Sorry about that.
Late already. Here's the poll question.
Right. As you prepare your feedback for this webinar.
The poll question is, have you migrated to Office 365? And your choices are, yes, we're all in using apps. We've migrated mail for right now. We're evaluating how to move, or no, we can't or won't move. So we'd love to hear where everybody is that
Okay.
question.
And I hope the people watching this are seeing that. I don't see that from the presenter view. I apologize. Okay. So we
it's
will
the
move
internet.
on. Sorry.
We blame it on the
about
internet.
that. All right. Without further ado, here is Phoummala Schmitt.
Hi, everybody. I'm Phoummala Schmitt, and as Paul said, I'm a messaging technology expert. And our agenda today is we're pretty much going to talk about email. Where's my email? And common causes for data loss with Microsoft Exchange and also Office 365. We're going to talk about how to mitigate that data loss that's caused by user errors and some of the challenges that appear when you move to Office 365. And we're also going to talk about, cloud-to-cloud backup, which is a totally new concept. I knew that in the beginning when this whole cloud thing came about, it wasn't really thought of, but now cloud-to-cloud backup is, appearing more and more within customers that move into the cloud. So email is the lifeline of most companies. I am an email administrator, as most of, if you know who I am, I love email. It is my, bread and butter, but it is also the bread and butter of many companies. More and more companies are switching to using email for their main communication. I know, for instance, where I work, it is used for not only communicating, but business transactions. So if email is down or you can't get to an email, you can't recover a certain email that has data in it, it is money loss. It's productivity loss. And at the end of the day, it's that bottom dollar. And it affects the company. So, and also there's compliance issues with that as well. When, you can't recover an email or you're trying to find something for some litigation, it really is, it can cause a lot of issues. You have, all sorts of lawyer issues, which I'm not a lawyer, and that's way beyond me. Yeah, I know. As Gina laughed, I'm definitely not a lawyer, but I'm an email admin. But it is the lifeline. If anybody that manages email, you pretty much know that when email's slow, it's down, a user can't find something in their inbox, it pretty much is the end of the world for them. I mean, everything just stops until you find that email or emails back up. It is really, it's at the point now where I step back a little bit when someone comes to me and says, my email is slow or I can't find something. I have to step back and go, okay. Because it's I don't want to say it's frustrating, but to explain to the user that, sometimes systems take a little bit of time. They take a little bit of massaging. But at the end of the day, though, email is the lifeline of every business. So as an administrator, you have to have the system up and running 100%, because the users will come after you. I've been there.
They needed to get their work done, right?
Oh, yeah, because it's productivity loss. It's money lost. If you can calculate that per dollar, each business has their own way of calculating, but it could be up to the millions depending on what type of business you're in. And if the industry I'm in, it could be millions of dollars lost. Email down for like 2 hours, just because we do so much transaction, or we can't find an email that was accidentally deleted. That could be potentially several $1 million that we have to pay because we've lost this litigation, or all that good fancy lawyer stuff, which I'm not a lawyer. So
you hear that question, where are my emails? You heard it this morning, right? Where are my emails?
I heard it about 7 times this morning. So I got 7 tickets this morning. Where's my email? And it ranges. And here in the slide, the common Microsoft Exchange, and we're going to talk about on-premise Exchange for right now. So common data loss, you're going to have deleted emails. Either they're accidental or intentional. And the deleted emails, it happens, both of them. Accidental happens every day. Intentional, that happens. And then there's the other intentional, where let's say somebody's leaving or they know they're going to leave, so they're preparing to clean up their mailbox, whether it's malicious intent or they just want to make sure that everything is nice and clean before they hand in the resignation form. I don't think people like to admit that happens. It happens more than people think. I've been in this industry working with email for over 10 years now, and I've seen it in every single company. You see people cleaning up their mailboxes, cleaning up their file shares before they turn in the resignation. And the intentional, it's there. So
that's kind of like that business continuance. We don't really think about people, even out of goodwill, just cleaning their inbox, trying to make things easier on the next person. Sometimes they can inadvertently cause a disruption in business continuance, which you were talking about a few minutes ago.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for me, let's pretend that I know I'm going to be leaving. Well, I just want to clean up my stuff, make sure everything's okay. I'm not thinking about that other person because I already shipped out. I'm out the door. I've already packed up the goods. I'm ready to go. And a lot of times it is not malicious, but then there are times that it is malicious intent. And I've seen those too in multiple companies where you have espionage. You've got things like that. So that does happen. Another one is, let's say you have somebody that leaves, and you're in a distributed environment, and by the time that notice gets to you that somebody left and you need to put them on litigation hold, they're already out the door. The account's been disabled. The mailbox has been purged. It's gone. What do you do then? I mean, that happens, a lot of times. I know, in a perfect world, you would think that process would flow very nice. Somebody's leaving, HR sends you the notice, the email admins get it, or the help desk gets it, and they put on litigation hold. But how do you know that person needs to go on litigation hold? How do you know that that is an important person until somebody tells you that? And by the time they tell you that, it could be 15 days, it could be 30 days. And depending on your settings on your database, you could have had that purge setting for maybe 5 days or 10 days.
Right. So there's a lot of responsibility you guys have as email administrators to keep business flowing and lots of things you wouldn't think of beyond just making sure an email never gets deleted or something happens. There's lots of ways the email can be deleted.
Yeah, email is more than just a technical process. It's a business process.
Right.
I know our offline conversation, I said, email administrators, we have to have thick skin because it is, we're just not technical people, but we face the end users, we face the business, and it's very sensitive. Email is emotional, so it's more than just a technical process. You have to involve the business, and the business needs to involve you.
Interesting.
Some more common data loss, corrupted database. Now, this isn't too often anymore, especially with, newer versions of Exchange, 2010, 2013, you have the DAG. And the DAG basically gives you multiple copies of your databases that you can pull copies from. It's Microsoft's, I want to say it's their high availability, but it's also built-in protection. So you don't have too many instances of corrupted databases anymore. But you can have failed backups. Let's say you are backing up your Exchange databases, which some people still do. I know in the TechNet documentation it says you don't need to back up Exchange if you've got 4 copies. But in the real world, people still back up their databases. Sorry, Microsoft. I think I would love it if nobody didn't need to back up their Exchange databases. But in the real world, we still do. Businesses are really not ready to let go of that entirely yet. There's some that have gone there, but most of us haven't. Yeah, there are some people that are still afraid. They still, it's that thought, I still need to back up my databases even though I've got 4 copies. And then you have, incorrect retention periods. And I think this is a business process issue where you've got incorrect retention periods placed in your retention policies, and you've let's say you've got 5 years versus 7 or 10. It's miscommunication. It's, not talking to the business or the business not talking to the technical people, or somebody fat fingering. But the incorrect retention periods happen. Not that I've actually done it, but I've seen it happen before, or not understanding what compliance rules that you have. So we'll go into the next slide here. And if you look at common data losses with Office 365, there's really not too much of a difference. Email is email. You're going to have the same type of data loss. You're going to have your accidental deletions, human error. You're going to have that same person that knows they're going to quit and starts cleaning up their mailboxes. I mean, people are people, right, Gina? You're going to have the configuration errors. It's not that much different whether you're on-prem or in the cloud. I mean, wouldn't you agree?
That's what I've heard, which is it's interesting to watch the comparison between on-premise and off-premises, because that's what that's like we were saying, like Paul said in the beginning, the great thing about 365 is Microsoft is just handling so much of this for you. So it's a no-brainer, but what it looks like, the same type of errors are all, human-born. I know configuration errors can also be not just from our admins. Maybe it's you have I don't know if you've ever seen this. You may have a user that has an add-on to their whatever they're using for the client to get their email, and sometimes that can make changes based on how they have that third-party add-on configured. So all of the same stuff we see happening from a user and an admin perspective seems like that's what we're seeing happening in on Office 365 as well.
Yeah, I mean, it really, to me, it doesn't change regardless of, where your email is. I really don't think the data loss or the type of data loss really changes, other than, with on-prem, you've got your corrupted databases, but that doesn't happen too often anymore. But overall, the concept is still the same. I mean, issues happen.
People have talked to me a lot about sync issues too with their mobile devices and getting back into Exchange where things are, and that causing some issues. Have you seen that either on premises or in 365?
I've seen it both. Okay. Mobile devices, I love them. I think they're great, but they can be a nuisance sometimes, especially if you have an MDM application sitting on top. That sync may not work correctly. It may die. It may decide it's just going to stop working today. And not that your emails get lost, but they don't get synced correctly. And then let's say you delete something on your phone because you think it's synced, and then it doesn't, and next thing you know, you've deleted everything in your mailbox. I've seen that happen.
Where's my email?
Yeah. Also, your OS, the cached exchange. I love it and hate it. Cache exchange for Outlook, it's great when you're on a WAN, but the thing I hate about it is it's a copy of your mailbox. And if you use multiple desktops or multiple laptops, you have a copy across all these different devices, and you can get corrupted profiles. And in that OST, you can have emails sitting in the outbox or sitting in a particular folder, and it doesn't get synced correctly. And then you check on a webmail, and webmail doesn't have it. And you're like, but wait, I sent it. It's not there. And then you go to your other computer, and you're typing away, and you're like, wait, I'm looking for that email. And you can't find it. And then you find out the user's got 5 different systems. And then, after you log on to all their systems, you find out it's on one single corrupted profile on another laptop they're using or, desktop. And then that email is stuck there. So somehow you have to get that email out of that corrupted profile and push it back up to webmail. Yeah.
Wow.
It's just not mobile devices. So cache exchange mode can be a nightmare, but it can be a lifesaver. So it's one of those things where I think every email admin, we've seen corrupted OST files. And, yes, your emails can get lost. You have a
love-hate relationship with it.
It is. It is a love-hate relationship because if you have an email that's stuck in an OST, how do you get that out? especially if it's really corrupted. I mean, there are times that, I've done some really voodoo magic to try to get some of these emails out so that I can get it back.
Goddess wand.
Yeah, because you can't lose, I can't lose that.
That's
but,
right.
if I don't have it in the backup, because depending on what my backup ran, it may not have been in the mailbox at the time. So it's stuck there in that OST.
So this might be a great way to transition to this, what's on the screen right now about, so what do? And you're really in depth, you've done this for a long time with Exchange, so you know where all the gotchas are. So when things are on premises, how do you protect yourself from that?
Well, with on-prem, so you have your single item recovery, which is available in Exchange 2010 and 2013. And basically that gives you the ability to go back into the tombstone, the dumpster. So when somebody deletes an email, they think they deleted it, it's gone. It's gone from the trash bin. But it really isn't gone. It's like in this hidden, I call it voodoo magic. That's what I tell my end users when they say, oh, I deleted something, and it's not my trash bin. I'm like, okay, let me check. Yeah, and I say it's in the cave, and I'll go and I'll check. I'm like, okay, it's in the tombstone. And that's configurable. By default, it's 14 days, but you can increase that depending on your specific policies that you have for your company. I've seen some people keep it at default, others maybe extend it to 30 days. So you can protect your data loss that way from accidental deletions. Let's say they move it into a PST folder, that's considered deleted as well, so that item will go into that tombstone area. Another way of protecting is also using DAG copies. I put this on the slide here because, yes, it's protecting your data because you're going to have multiple copies of your mail, but it's not going to protect you from a point-in-time recovery, unless you have multiple copies that are lagged, more than just one lagged copy, like a backup. And that's where, the next point is backing up your Exchange databases. So using DAG copies is great for protecting your real-time mail. But if you want to go back in time to recover without using or with using more than a one lag copy, you need to have some type of backup. Third-party backup vendors, there's plenty of them out there. And there's also the native Windows backup that it can also do Exchange. And that's pretty much, going back in different points in time. And there are some cases that you need that. Even if your single item recovery is enabled, it may not go back as far as what your backups can do. Also, another way of protecting is, configure your retention policies based off whatever compliance and regulations that you are required by your business. This isn't a safe-all. It's not a catch-all safe, but it can help protect some of your data in use with also your backups as well. It just depending
right, and that's
on
important. That's important too. Yeah, sorry about that. That's important too to be able to do that based on what your business needs, right? So you've got there the compliance and doing that in compliance with regulations. So if you don't know and you set the retention policies incorrectly, you lose all those emails, and there may be a penalty there if you're strictly having to adhere to compliance regulations.
And this is where it's key to really talk with the business and right. You know what? Become friends with your legal department, the lawyers. And one thing I found is lawyers don't like to make, if you ask them, hey, what should my retention policy be? A lot of times I find lawyers really don't want to tell you a date. They kind of go, well, because they want to keep everything. And I hate to stereotype the lawyers, but they're, our legal department is notorious for wanting to keep everything. But then yet they know that if the data is there, you are liable to recover it in a lawsuit or any type of litigation. So it's really important to work with them and define what is legally required for our company to keep. What type of regulations do we need to follow? Like, with HIPAA and SOX, depending on what industry you're in, you may be required to keep everything, or maybe only 7 years or 10 years. And then also the country that you're in. I know in Europe, data privacy and data retention laws are slightly different than the U.S. So it just really depends, and that's where you really need to work with the business, your legal department, your compliance department, and come up with what is the best retention policy.
Right.
Because it's just not email, it's data.
Right.
And sometimes we often forget that it's data, not email, because email contains attachments.
Right. Right.
And my last point was
litigation hold, right?
Yeah, litigation. That goes to the retention policies.
And that's super important to let the lawyers get involved there too, right? Because there is a risk if we just as administrators decide what we think all of these things should be, but especially litigation hold, if we just decide what we think that time period should be, and we put everybody or who should be on litigation hold, that we open our companies up to legal risk. So it's definitely something probably advisable, like you said, to talk to the lawyers and make sure we get their buy-in for what that should be.
Yeah, I've been around where I found that it's best to really work with the business, work with the the legal team, the compliance team, because if you don't, it's going to come back and bite you in the end. As administrators, it's so easy for us to put some numbers in, click OK, close out the screen, and we're done. But 6 months down the road, it can really bite you.
Where's my email for the past 2 years?
Or you could have a lawyer come to you and say, I need to have all emails going back from Exchange 5.5 because we just got sued. And then you go, okay, well, we just purged all those. We don't have those. What do you do then? So it's just really important to really work with them and have that open line of communication.
That's
especially when you're in the business where you're getting sued a lot. I'm sure you do searches and things like that.
Right.
So our next slide.
This looks a lot like what we were just talking about, maybe a little different for 365.
It is, because it really doesn't, to me, it really doesn't matter where your data is. And I know this big thing, everyone keeps saying, oh, the cloud, but does it really matter? Because it's your data. Regardless of where it's at, it's still your data, right? You're still responsible for it. In here, in Office 365, and you still have some of the same capabilities. You have single item recovery. 14 days, you can increase it to 30 days, which is like on-prem. You still have retention policies, litigation hold. Let's say an employee leaves, you can put them in an active state, which is now, I have to admit, that is slightly different than on-prem. On-prem, what you would do is you would just disable the mailbox and never, disable the account and AD and never delete them. Just leave them there. But, with Office 365, you can put them in an inactive state so it doesn't take up your license. And then third-party backup solutions. So there really isn't a difference that much with protecting Office 365. You have the same capabilities, and, you're facing the same situation with data loss. It's the same type of data loss, so you're going to have similar types of ways to protect your data.
Right. It's interesting it's so similar, but it is just the same. This is what you were saying before. This is perfect.
Yeah, I mean, my point is, regardless of where your data is, you need to protect it. I think people forget that, okay, I'm putting my email in the cloud, but does it really matter if it's in the cloud or it's on-prem? Because the concept of the cloud has always been around. The cloud really is, I tell people sometimes, the cloud really isn't this, magical myth. It's just your data isn't stored locally. I mean, the cloud's always been around. Maybe you have a data center that's somewhere else. It's just not in your physical location. So technically, that's a private cloud. It's always kind of been there. It's a new term of describing something. But regardless of where it's at, it's still your data, right? And ultimately, you are responsible for your data, even though it's in the cloud. Microsoft has their, their agreement with you, but there's only so much that they can do. It's still your data. You're still responsible for it, and you still need to protect it.
That's right. So the concept of cloud is pretty nebulous, but it still is, especially if we're responsible for the lifeblood of the business, which we're saying is emails, and that's what you live and breathe every day. Then we are kind of responsible to make sure that we nail down what that is and how things are going.
Yeah, because, Microsoft doesn't run your company. You do. You know how your business runs. So you have to understand your business. You got to understand the different processes. It's your responsibility as email administrator or, as the IT director or whoever manages that to understand, okay, I put it up into Office 365, but at the end of the day, I need to understand what my business process is, what my requirements are, and I need to make sure that I've transferred those types of requirements to the cloud, and I'm still doing the same thing so I can achieve the same results to the business.
That's right. So we're just expanding our business processes to, somebody else taking care of some of the details for us. Hey, there's a poll. We just opened up a poll, so I'll read that out real quick. And if you guys that are attending would vote for us, we'd really love to hear it. We want to hear from you guys what the cause of your worst email outage or issue was. So was it user error, admin error, a hacker, or some kind of virus, or some kind of malicious intent, or if you have a really long, exciting, really horrible story, we'd love to hear those on Twitter. You can tweet us the details using the "Where's my email" hashtag. Sorry, we we left the E out of the mail part. So go ahead and vote. And I think we can move along, Phoummala. Let's see what we're going to talk about next. So this is going right along with what you said. A lot of people wonder, we're talking about there are certain situations in which you can lose email, even if we put it to 365, and they look like the same situations that we have with Exchange when it's on premises. So the question comes up, well, why isn't Microsoft protecting my data, and don't they do anything to protect my data? And they absolutely do, and this goes back to the beginning when we were talking about what a great way to manage things that Microsoft has traditionally provided in an on-premises environment where you install the software on a server and you take care of all of that. I think Paul talked about this being the way that Microsoft has gone from this transformation from providing things totally to be used on premises to moving to a cloud environment. How Microsoft's done it so well, it's really kind of a blueprint for enterprises to get to the cloud. And I think, working with it as how I'm working with it now, I kind of agree with it. It's amazing what they can do. But it's still a SaaS, a software as a service offering. And any SaaS that we start using, they're only going to be able to do so much for us. And the way we find out what they can do for us is through what their SLAs are. So this SLA is from this is their service continuity SLA for Office 365 from Microsoft. And they tell you what they're responsible for. They're responsible to help you recover quickly from unexpected events such as hardware, application failure, data corruption, or other incidents that are going to impact your users. So if you look on the right-hand side of this slide here, what's being presented, that's where Microsoft is absolutely protecting your data from kind of the application down. And this is the reason actually to move to Office 365. You don't have to worry about the network. You don't have to worry about tuning the servers anymore and figuring out where you're going to get the best bang for your buck out of IOPS, how the server needs to be sized or how a VM needs to be sized to handle that. You don't have to worry about administering the OS with all the patches and blah, blah, blah. You don't have to worry about the Hyper-V or VMware if that's what you had it on before. You don't have to worry about patching the application itself. Microsoft does all of that for you. And that's what the great part of the offering is. And within those boundaries, they are definitely going to take care of your data. They're going to make sure that you're never going to have to worry about, oh my God, the email server's down, because they're taking care of it. They're not going to let that happen. They're not going to let, if something happens in one of their data centers that's pretty catastrophic, where we would normally on-prem have a DR plan for it, they've got all that covered. You don't have to deal with that anymore. They're dealing with all that.
But they only protect it to a point, Gina. They only protect it to a point as long as you configure those retention policies.
That's right.
Yeah, they're going to protect your data. Yes, they've protected it, but based off what you configure your data to be there for.
That's right.
So again,
and
you have to own your data.
To own your data, and that's kind of where, and I think that's a big shift, because I come from that traditional data center kind of point of view, of planning for every single thing that could happen and making sure that you do have complete business continuity. So this kind of a shift in thinking, if you move to Office 365, what you have to worry about now is all of these policies and how you configured your retention policies. What can your users do? How do I make sure that I'm able to take care of any event that's happened if my users have deleted an email? How am I able, since now I can't touch the application, I can't go to a backup I may have taken with a traditional on-premises backup application. How do I get that email content back where the users can use it very quickly? And that's kind of part of what we have to consider. Hang on. There we go. So that comes back to, thinking as an admin and someone who's responsible for this data, we're sharing the responsibility with Microsoft in the case of Office 365, right? Like we said, they're going to take care of everything they can take care of. They're going to protect your data so that when you need it, it's there. But they're not responsible for all the things we talked about before that happen on-prem and now in Office 365 with Exchange, right? They can't help you with a human error. They can't help you if your VP has attached some really cool new gadget to however he reads his email, and that wipes out everything on the 365 side. Can't help you if you get a hacker or a malicious insider. Can't help you in the case of your users still clicking bad links and introducing a really bad virus to your tenant. That's still going to happen. You've got to take care of it. And if you think about it, that's what you want to happen. Microsoft doesn't know when they get a command executed to your Exchange environment on Office 365. They don't know whether that user is, from your point of view, a trusted user, an entitled user or not. It's just that they logged in with the right credentials, they made this command to delete data, they're going to execute on it. And that's what you want them to do. You don't want Microsoft having some squirrely, backup environment where they can say, oh, look, it's here for you, we've got it, and we can keep going. You want them to do what you say to do with your data, and they promise to do that, and that's what all SaaS providers do. So you're still responsible for all of those human things that have happened to you on premises.
Oh, definitely. Because if you go back to Microsoft and say, but this happened, I thought you protected my data, they're going to turn around and say, well, did you read the EULA? Here's the fine print. Let me print off page 765, column B right here. Yeah.
But I think just going into that, it's important to know because, you come to this realization that, okay, Microsoft's taking really good care of my data as long as it's on their systems. But if somebody from an account assigned to us on our tenant says delete this data, they're going to do that too, which is what we want them to do. That's a good relationship to have with our SaaS provider, right? We know they're not keeping our email or doing anything crazy to hide it or preserve it. So you come to that realization, then you have to back up a step and say, okay, since this is new to a lot of environments going to the cloud for different things that we did ourselves. We tuned the knobs and we took care of the blinky lights and we did all of that on-prem ourselves. So who's responsible for making sure that that data is available quickly to be restored, that we're using something, backing up that data so we can, if there is some case of our users or our admins or a hacker or something crazy happening, we can get back to business quickly. So who on the team is responsible? Is it the backup admins? Maybe. Maybe that's who it should be. Is it the Office 365 admins? Maybe that's who should lead the charge and do it. But somebody from the infrastructure team really needs to be thinking about that.
But it goes back to my point. You're responsible for your data. You need to talk to the business. Have a plan, because just because you put it in the cloud doesn't mean it's foolproof. I know there's been some bloggers out there that say, what Microsoft's offering or basic offering is great. They protect your data. Yes, they do to a point. But in the real world, for the rest of us Exchange admins or server admins, business is typically fluid. Things change, directions change, lawsuits happen. You get a change of CEO or a director. I mean, it's moving. Business is always moving, and it's not always static. And it's great that Microsoft protects us, but we as technologists, we have to be able to adjust accordingly and be able to adapt to those changes. We have to have some type of a safety net, because we know that the business changes constantly. I mean, yeah. I know from my business, the requirements change constantly. One day I'm told to do this. 6 months later, we may be told to do something completely different. But at the end of the day, if I have a backup of it, or something that my safety net, I can go, okay, just because I've changed direction or I've been told to do something different, I still have my data. And
that's a great point.
To those bloggers out there, yes, Microsoft protects you, but sometimes they don't understand that the business evolves a lot, and we as administrators need to protect ourselves.
And I think going back to too, like what we've talked about about what you were talking about in the beginning, that the reality is the same data losses that happen on premises are going to happen on Office 365. So we have to figure out, that's what you're saying, right? We have to figure out what's our backup plan to the backup, which is what good admins do. How are we doing this and how are we taking care of it? This slide I have up now is actually, a really good place to start with compliance. COBIT kind of manages just compliant requirements to make sure that you have a healthy, systematic IT organization, right? And so best practices for compliant. And best practices for compliant is not just making sure you have a copy of data stored someplace and you have a copy of all these emails, in the case of what we're talking about today, stored away. For business continuance, you have to be able to restore those emails in a timely manner in a time frame determined by the business. So
I love this slide, Gina, because
cool.
I was on a storage I was on a storage panel at VMworld, and one of the questions they asked us was, when storage goes to the cloud, should your requirements change? Does that change your business needs and requirements? And my response was, no, it does not. It doesn't change anything. You are still required to do the same things that the business requires you to do. Just like here, you still got the same compliance requirements, regardless if it's on-prem or in the cloud. It's still the same. It doesn't change. I'm still in the same business, right? Just because I've moved my data to Office 365, does that mean that I don't have to follow all my HIPAA regulations or SOX or, SIP 5, which I don't think a lot of SIP 5, the energy industry would actually go to Office 365, but that's a whole other webinar.
Right.
But again,
next time.
but go ahead.
I was just going to say that's the whole point of it. And if, I think I can go back in the slide presentation, so I'm going to try to just really quick. Everybody bear with me, see if we can make this work. That's the whole thing. Like, if you move it to the cloud, especially if you move it to a SaaS provider, like how Microsoft is providing software as a service, all of these things we did on our own, we're used to doing all of this whole stack there on the right, all on our own, managing all this stuff. The reason it's so awesome to move to 365 is you don't have to tune things. You don't have to patch things. Microsoft takes care of everything. But going back with that theme, you have to manage, instead of having to manage all this, you still have to manage all of your regulations. You're responsible for the data. You're responsible for the administration of that SaaS application. And you're the one that's responsible for knowing what your business expects and how fast your business expects emails to be restored and what your business expects to happen from a business continuance point of view. And if we're saying the email is the lifeline, we really have to think about that. Right.
Oh yeah. Email is.
This is what we're saying with the slide. You love it. So your responsibilities for protecting that data aren't any different than they were on premises. You just have to be aware of the differences in what you can touch and feel, and because of that, how do you have to change your planning and your administration of that to have data that you can recover. So that's kind of why we're here, and that's why I'm here, and that's what I support is Spanning Backup for Office 365. And that's what we do. We do automated and on-demand backups, granular point in time. So if you have a mailbox you need to go back to a week ago or however long ago you've been backing up your data with Spanning, we can get you back to that point in time to what those emails and what that mailbox looked like so you can restore it. Completely, we have all the monitoring, completely transparent about what happens while we do the backups. So while we're doing the backups for you, because we're a SaaS provider too, we're taking care of you and letting you know, here's all the stuff that's going on so you're aware of it. One of the things we do that's really interesting is we can empower your users to find their own emails and restore them themselves. So that's what Spanning is. We started with Google Apps. We also do backups for Salesforce. With Google Apps, it's going to look a lot like Office 365 will look soon, where we kind of, with Google Apps, started there and just enabled the users. And the whole idea behind the company was we know there's this gap here. We know users are going to do these crazy things, but we really depend on everything that's there. How do we make this so simple that even a user could take care of their own data restoration needs? So we do that.
So you guys have kind of taken the approaches. I'm not going to name the other vendors, the backup vendors, but there are other backup vendors that have done that same approach with on-prem. That you can do role-based access control to your backup environment and allow the users to either do a search or discovery and a restore of some of their emails. So you guys kind of taken that approach, but have used the cloud and made it more kind of a self-service type of function.
We have. So you can either provide that to your users. We're real interested in hearing from people if they would like to allow their users and what would be preventing them from allowing their users to do their own restores. But I moved the screen just so you can see it. So ours is it's inside 365. So this is a screenshot of what it looks like if you're actually logged into 365 into an email account, and where the backups look like. You can just simply look for the date. If you look, I don't have a pointer thing on this. If you look there kind of in the middle where the calendar is, you can look for the date where you want to restore to, and you can restore. And if you're doing this as an admin, you get two choices. You can restore the emails back to the user account where they were, or you can restore them to another user's account. Why that's kind of cool, we were talking in the beginning of about things you would do in Office 365 to protect the data. Like if you remove a license, that data is gone in 30 days. You can leave it there, but how easy is it to restore the data? So this is the cool thing. You can restore all this data to another user account, either to let's say somebody leaves. You can restore it to the manager's account, maybe the new person's coming in. All of those emails and that email cleaning up, you don't have to worry about it. That chain of information is still there, so you can have as little disruption with changing either team members or employees as possible.
How long do you have retention policies within the Spanning backup? So could I keep, I won't say an infinite amount of Spanning backups, but let's say a lot.
So we're adding that. So right now we keep it's unlimited space, so you can keep as much email as you like, and we're adding soon the ability for you to set your own policies for how long you want Spanning to keep those emails. Does that answer what you're asking me?
Yeah, it does. So, you're basically providing that that point in time that what most on-prem administrators are used to that do backup email. You're giving us that ability to go back in time, jump in a DeLorean and put a date in, and we can go back and grab our emails. Something that a lot of backup administrators and email administrators are used to doing. Because retention policies, they're great. I like them, but at the same time, you kind of old habits die hard. Everybody loves to have that backup, that safety net. Because you just never know. Business, like I said, business needs change, and having that safety net.
That's right, and there are times where people can delete data off your tenant without you knowing. So without having something, in a backup to have that safety net, you don't have it. The other thing that's kind of cool is when we do the restore, and this is totally simple enough for a user to do. You can restore either an entire folder down to a single email. So you have that ability to be very, very granular as well. There it goes. And the other thing is it's on any device. So we have a really, really awesome user design, I think, that on a tablet, on a laptop, on a phone. So if you get that, crazy VP email or, I guess call, where's my email? Whatever you have in your hand, you can restore it for them quickly. And I guess this is kind of
I'm speaking from an administrative point of view. I personally, I'm not sure if I'd feel comfortable giving, my users the ability to restore, because knowing some of my users, I think they would restore every single email, because, their deleted items folder is really their, it's just a filing folder. It's really not a trash bin. They would keep everything if they could.
Well, so you have control over that. That's what the cool thing is. You can restrict them from using it, or you can allow them. I think it's kind of a business decision, too. I think that we'll probably I really want to do a survey on this. I'm interested in hearing everybody's feedback on what they think about it. I did want to show you this, though. So this is kind of the service architecture, and this is very light on technical details on purpose because we're running out of time. We've only got a few minutes, and I know we want to get to some questions. But the way we work is we take the APIs that Office 365 is hanging out, and we work with our cloud APIs, and we do get the work done, the backup work done. We totally store it in our cloud, and we restore it back to 365. So it is a pure cloud to cloud, and people say born in the cloud application. Spanning is that, absolutely. So whatever we're able to do from Office 365, and we work closely with them, and like all of the trusted partners are that way. We have a good relationship with them, and we're on board with where they're going with everything, and trying to build. I think we've done a really good job trying to build a backup application that makes sense, is intuitive, and is in line with where Microsoft is going.
I have a question, a technical question. So let's say, I've got a litigation case and I need to export emails to a PST folder to give to a lawyer. And anybody that's dealt with Office 365 knows that could be such a pain in the you-know-what to export emails. On-prem, it's great, a couple commands, bam, bam, you're done. With Spanning, is that, can I easily export to a PST or a different location? Because I know with Office 365, I actually have to go into the account, into the Outlook profile, and go to File, and and do the whole export process. I can't just do a PowerShell command to send it to a file share somewhere. And that's what I really miss with Office 365, is that ability to do a mass export. Can I do that with Spanning?
We've heard that from a bunch of people, and that, again, is one of the things that we are actively working on. So it has a little bit more complexities because of the fact that we're working with APIs. So we're working on it. We should have it really soon, though. But yes, definitely.
Okay. I mean, that I know from an administrator, sometimes I'll get requests for 15 mailboxes, and we've got to export everything out. With Office 365, that's a pain, but, the ability to just go and, click, 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 right click, go, export, and you're done.
And that's exactly what that's why we want people to use Spanning, because that's where we're at, is we want to make sure that, it's complete use cases for you as admin, so you feel comfortable being on 365, but having that safety of a backup and being able to get everything done like you would on-prem, like we've been talking about. I'm looking at the time, Phoummala. Don't ask me any more questions. I'm happy. If anybody wants to ask me a question, I'm Jamie on Twitter. Please holler at me. I would love to answer your questions. But we're running out of time.
Yeah. I actually, personally, I think it's a really interesting product, especially the fact that, Microsoft doesn't stack up your data. And as long as you configure the correct retention policies, your data is always there. But we're humans. We make mistakes. Retention policies may change here and there, but backups don't. If you have a backup, they're there. And to me, when you told me about your product, I was like, oh wow, that's really interesting, because Microsoft doesn't back us up. I mean, you're out there. It's kind of like, okay, configure retention policies is up to you to make sure you understand what your retention policies are. But what if you don't understand?
Phoummala, I'm going to cut you off. I'm really sorry. We've only got a few minutes left, and it looks like we have some questions queued up. I do want to make sure that people see, this slide. We've got some great resources for you, and you can try Spanning for absolutely free. You just need an administrator account on an Office 365 tenant, and you can hang out and check it out for yourself to see what I've been talking about. But I think, Paul, are you going to do the questions for us, or? Uh-oh. Hey, Paul, I can't hear you.
We face the challenges of the internet, Gina.
I know. Paul, you sound really scratchety. That is a technical term.
I like the term tinny. You sound really tinny. But no, he definitely sounds scratchy, like he's probably...
But maybe I can take the first one. I see one. And see if we can get you unpinned. This isn't good. So one of the questions was, when we say Office 365 backup, Does Spanning Backup take care of SharePoint and OneDrive and OneNote? Thanks. So right now, we launched with email because we know that's what most people are starting with is email. Pretty soon, very, very soon, we'll have support for OneDrive, and then after that, SharePoint. So I hope that answers the question. Hey, Paul, you want to try again? Oh, he's going to call back. Okay, so let me keep going. There's another one. How does Spanning get a backup of the email from Office 365? So
great question. That's a great question.
So I'll go back to this slide, and I know this is a really high-level view of what we do. Basically, we're working with whatever APIs Office provides, and we're using our cloud providers' compute APIs. We're mixing those together. We're backing up those emails to our cloud provider's location right now. I guess if we think about the question some more, we work with Azure AD. That's how we figure out, who is actually in your tenant that may need their emails backed up. And then you, as an administrator, you'll have a screen where you can go in and choose who you're backing up and what backups you need to have. So I hope that answered the question for you.
What protocol does it uses? Does it use it uses EWS? Just to clarify.
Yes, it does for Exchange. Yes.
Okay.
Let me pick another question here. I'm looking at questions still.
Can you folks hear me now?
It's a little better.
Still bad.
Now
I always say technology never
you
fails
encountered
me,
the internet, Paul. This is the internet where you never know what's going to happen.
Okay.
Oh, this is a great question. Is the email backup encrypted in transit and at rest with Spanning? Oh, I love this question. I wonder if this person is in the healthcare industry or the energy industry.
So the answer to that is yes. I have my PM in the room, and he's drawing a picture on the board. So we use SSL for transit, and at rest we do 256-bit at rest and item level encryption at the item level. So yeah, we're encrypted. That security part is we're all on it.
There's a question here. Can you speak briefly discuss how long email archives need to exist? And does it vary according to industry? And I'm going to answer that yes. It depends on your industry. It depends on your business needs and your requirements. That archive, really, it's just another mailbox. It's just another holding pit for your emails. So technically, as I explained this to upper management, you really don't have to have that archive. It's great. It's just not a holding pit for your emails. But the retention policies are still dependent upon what our business needs are. So yes, it varies.
I think the business need part is critical, and that we were talking about the lawyers earlier. That's really critical that you have an interface up the chain and not try to make these decisions on yourself, like just picking. And that's because you don't want 3 years from now someone to come back and you should have kept those whatever for 7 years because of email 7 years, and someone's now served your company with a litigation request, and that's why we call all of these things litigation hold. It's absolutely based on the idea that you should have known, based on your industry requiring you to have emails kept for a certain amount of time, or by the nature of your business and the nature of maybe the individual's mailboxes, that you should have had a reasonable doubt that you would have someone present you with a litigation request. And the reason you don't keep things outside the litigation request or what's reasonably expected or outside of what's required by law or compliance rules is because those emails are searchable, they're discoverable. So anything you have that's discoverable, that could ding your company if there is a litigation request and a lawsuit. So that's why it's really, really important not to try to figure this out for yourself, but to go talk up the chain and ask them what the business requirements are. So you're passionate about email. I think I might be passionate about that. It's a little crazy. So, okay, so what do we have next? We have, I think we're going to have to, all the other questions we have, I tell you what, I will make a commitment to make a blog post out of these and answer these questions as an FAQ blog post. But we're going to get cut off here in about 4 seconds, in a few seconds. So Phoummala, thanks so much for being here with us. Paul, if you're there, it was really nice having you here. Oh, that's much better now.
Let's start the Q&A over. I'm back.
Okay, let's do it.
No, this has been great. I think people that are thinking about going to Office 365, I know I've said multiple times in current status, I think it's great because I'm lazy. I'm a lazy Exchange admin. It's great because Microsoft does everything for you, pretty much. They manage your servers. But at the end of the day, you still are responsible for your data. It's key that people realize that just because it's somewhere else doesn't mean you have to let go of that responsibility. You still have to think about, okay, my retention policies, what if this happens? What if that happens? It's still the same requirements at the end of the day. It's still the same RTOs, SLAs.
That's right.
You still have to meet those same requirements that the business is asking you of. So it doesn't matter where it's at. It's still your responsibility to say, here's the data. You still have to give it to them.
Paul, do you have any closing comments and maybe lead us out of this, if you don't mind?
Sure. I've had to dial in with yesterday's technology. It's called a telephone.
What? Oh, my God. What is that? What is that? Hopefully it wasn't a payphone.
No, I just wanted to say thank you guys for doing this. And, normally I would say something along the lines of that was a great presentation or set of presentations, but honestly it was just a great conversation. And